Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Coming up on today's show, the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has met with Rwanda's President Paul Kagame at 10 Downing Street this week to discuss the stagnant £500 million deportation scheme. Our Downing Street correspondent Simon Pusey will shortly be joining me here in the studio for an update on the visit. And according to a recent UNESCO report, Africa holds all the cards to become one of the next world fashion leaders, thanks in part to the success of catwalk shows taking place across the world, including Africa Fashion Week London. The show's founder, Her Royal Majesty Queen Ronke Ademiluyi Ogumusi of Ile-Ife Kingdom, will be joining me in the studio alongside designer and art director Bola Obilei to talk about AFWL's impact within the multi-billion-dollar fashion industry. Then later, Nicolas Pompinho-Monhard, the founder and chairman of the APO Group, joins me from Estoril in Portugal to assess the concept of brand Africa and the continent's diverse and rapidly evolving media landscape. But first, on Tuesday, the UK Prime Minister hosted a hastily arranged meeting in Downing Street with Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. The Prime Minister is understood to have updated Kagame on the next stages of the Safety Rwanda Bill, which declares Rwanda a safe country for asylum seekers. The visit comes as the government wrestles with delays to the deportation scheme, which was first announced back in April 2022. According to the Times newspaper, of the 163 affordable homes in Rwanda that were reserved to house migrants who came to Britain illegally, 70% have been sold. The Rwandan government has disputed this claim. Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by our Downing Street correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, so Paul Kagame, president of Rwanda, has been in London. I spoke to his people. Apparently it was supposed to be a private visit, but Downing Street have, of course, met with him. Still lots of controversy about the deportation plan. Are we any clearer about whether or not asylum seekers in the UK will get to Rwanda?
Yeah, well, I think the symbolism is quite important here. There's a picture of Paul Kagame and Rishi Sunak on the steps of Downing Street. That's never great for Rishi Sunak when the other person is so much taller than him. Paul Kagame is 6'2". By the way, his daughter is 6'4".
Yes.
So if you see photos of them, especially with the Obamas, his daughter is absolutely massive. But it's just a reminder, really, that this flagship policy, one of his 5 points that he needs to do to, try and get re-elected, has gone so terribly wrong, and obviously then lots of other things kind of come out of the woodwork. So we're also hearing that this the Downing Street said that the pioneering UK and Rwanda migration economic development partnership, this is what they were meeting about, pioneering in inverted commas, that nothing has happened yet, right? It's been years and no one has got on a plane to Rwanda.
Just some Home Secretaries.
Well, exactly, several. But we're hearing reports that the properties in Kigali that were earmarked to house these people have been sold off or are in the process of being sold off because they're like, well, these have just been sitting here for a while, we can make money out of them. So even Rwanda, on the one side, is saying we look forward to working with the UK in this partnership, but on the other side, they're selling off the properties because they don't believe that anyone's actually going to come over. And then you've got our favourite ex-Home Secretary, Suella Braverman is obviously kicking off and getting in the mix because she obviously wants to be the next Prime Minister. So while he's visiting, she says, fallen expectations, people are going to be disappointed that 163 affordable homes in Kigali have been sold off and no one's got on a flight yet. So we're not quite sure what happened to these discussions. What we do know is that this policy is still a train wreck. We've spent hundreds of millions of pounds UK taxpayer money. And in the meantime, remember the actual problem at the heart of this. Over 5,000 illegal migrants have crossed the channel so far this year in small boats. Obviously,
the weather's getting warmer.
The weather's getting warmer, which means there's going to be more.
Absolutely.
And there just seems to be absolutely no progress. But Rishi Sunak seems to be sticking to his guns, and this is his main flagship policy, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So I think, the imagery here and the sort of symbolism of Paul Kagame coming over and that Photoshop shoot, and that's all really people unfairly will think when they see Paul Kagame and Rishi Sunak, is that this policy is just not working, and it's obviously one that needs to turn around because it seems to be so influential for voters. It seems to be what a lot of people are talking about is net migration. And even though these 5,000 illegal migrants is a tiny tip of the iceberg in terms of migration, net migration either way, it does seem to be the one that a lot of people on the right of the Conservative Party and right wing generally are talking about, that we need to get control of this. And I just want to say also, this is not a UK-based problem. This is a Europe-based problem. Every country in Europe really is seeing the same kind of problems.
Germany, Italy.
Absolutely. So we're not even close to the top of that, but it is dominating the headlines here. And I think, it's strange that the Conservatives have not tried to change tact a little bit, so to try and get that number down, or at least to be able to say, look, we're doing this X, Y, Z to try and cope with this problem.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
According to a recent UNESCO report, Africa holds all the cards to become one of the next world fashion leaders, thanks in part to the success of catwalk shows taking place across the world, including Africa Fashion Week London. Over the past few years, AFWL has served as a vital platform for promoting African fashion, fostering collaboration and showcase continent's cultural richness and creativity on an international scale. Earlier, I was joined in the studio by the platform's founder, Her Royal Majesty Queen Ronke Ademeluyi Ogunwusi of Ile-Ife Kingdom, alongside designer and art director Bola Obileye. Your Royal Majesty Queen Ronke Ademeluyi Ogunwusi of Ile-Ife Kingdom and Bola Obileye, thank you so much for joining me in the Channel's Business Global studio. Thank you for bringing such colour and majesty and warmth. And you also smell amazing. It's a shame our viewers can't smell you, but I'm really excited to have you in the studio, Your Royal Majesty. Talk to me about Africa's billion-dollar fashion industry, because you have contributed massively to that, particularly when it comes to the West embracing African culture, because of course you are the founder of Africa Fashion Week London. I believe it's in its 18th year?
It's 14th year.
It's 14th year,
yes.
Soon to be 18.
Soon to be 18.
Soon to be 18,
yes.
But we're going to get to the 14th one in November. Talk to me about Africa's cultural influence and identity on the global stage and how it's evolved in the 14 years that you've been doing AFWL.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's quite an honour to be here. And you've been to Africa Fashion Week London. Yeah, you've attended a few. It started in 2011, and it was born out of that urgent need to create a platform for African and Black creatives to thrive. Back then, there wasn't a lot going on social media. We didn't have the mainstream fashion houses were not incorporating, Black fashion and African fashion on a global stage, probably because they didn't understand what African fashion was all about.
Were they wearing it then? Did they embrace it?
They were not wearing it then. Even as Africans, we were shying away from it then. So we were not embracing it. But over the years, the perception has changed, It has evolved. And we see a lot of non-Africans, wearing African outfits now. We see this at Africa Fashion Week London. Our audience, the people who come, our visitors, about 50% of them are non-Africans. And, they want to see the vibrancy. They want to see, the beautiful colours, the radiant colours that come out of Africa. And, Africa Fashion Week London provides them with that. It provides them an opportunity to see what they want to see on the high streets.
Well, what do you think? How has it changed, and how are you involved in Africa Fashion Week?
So I joined Africa Fashion Week London over 10 years ago. And when it started, it was just an incredible platform for me because we were doing things that were pretty much new. So making handbags out of African prints, actually going to create our own fabrics like chiffon and all of that. And I remember back then that everyone used to think it was novel. They used to be like, wow, wow. But we never had a platform to show this. So Africa Fashion Week London was such an incredible platform for people like me and other designers then to showcase our work where people understood, knew the difference and embraced it. So to see how far Africa Fashion Week London has come. It's so incredible. It's exciting for me. And yeah, it gets better and better.
You know, it's so exciting, and 50 years is a really long time, particularly, you know, you do it in quite pricey areas of London. It costs a lot of money. It's going for over a week. And as you said, the audience has changed. You are starting to see people from really established fashion publications like Vogue attending your events. Do you think that AFWL has actually had a specific imprint on the way people in the West perceive African fashions?
I think it has, because it was after the success of Africa Fashion Week London. So Africa Fashion Week London in 2011. So I remember when I came up with the idea and spoke to a few people about it, I was advised to change the name. I was told that the name African would not sell in the UK. I was
2011.
2011.
It's not that long ago.
It's not that long at all.
I was discouraged, you know, that no one wears African fashion in
From
London.
Africans or the English?
From Africans, yeah, because we were not really embracing our culture then, you know, unlike now where we have, you know, our music, our food, our fashion, you know, we proudly... Football as well, you know, we wear it with so much pride. Back then, it wasn't like that. So when I spoke about having an Africa Fashion Week in London, everyone shied away from it. No one wanted to be associated with it. But I still went ahead. I did it. We did it. The first edition we had the Bishopsgate, Gibson Hall. Bishopsgate in London, you know, not far from Liverpool Street.
I think we're showing some of those pictures now.
And it was amazing because the turnout, so we got a venue for about 700 people and we had about 4,500. So
for the first event?
For the first event. So the queue was almost all the way to Liverpool Street. Wow. And then I remember the police coming, you know, to see what was going on because they had never seen, it was during summer then, it was August in 2011. And they came to check what was going on because the vibrancy, the colours, imagine that queue all the way, it was a Saturday, offices were not open.
Even with the three of us now, I think we've brightened up central London, haven't we?
Yeah, the headgears, you know, the wrappers and everything, the vibrancy. And they were just gobsmacked. That really, is this what African fashion is all about? Absolutely. And everyone started talking about it. So I think it was the success of that, you know, that now inspired cities around the world to come up with their own Africa Fashion Week.
Absolutely, and it's African fashion is now embedded in the fabric of London, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Olori, I think it would be rude of me not to talk about the kingdom of which you are the queen, Ile-Ife. It's an ancient city in southwestern Nigeria, and as we all know, it's regarded as the traditional spiritual homeland of the Yoruba people. Has becoming queen changed what your plans are for African Fashion Week London? Because of course it must have even more significance and importance now.
In a way, yes. But before I became a queen, I was a princess of Ile-Ife Kingdom as well. So my husband is the 51st Oni of Ife, His Imperial Majesty.
Hopefully he's watching.
Adeyeye Enitan Ogunwusi. He's the 51st Oni of Ife. And my great-grandfather was the 48th Oni of Ife as well.
Oh, wow. I don't think many people will know that.
So I've always had royalty in me.
I can tell.
So becoming a queen has enabled me to learn more about our culture. Yeah. Becoming a queen has enabled me to, how do I put it? It has enabled me to see more of the Yoruba culture, you know, work with rural people in, you know, in the rural areas. And that is what inspired, you know, setting up the Adire textile hub in Ile-Ife, you know, bringing the ancient techniques of textile making, you know, and modernizing it and working with, you know, the rural women to come up with different designs, but also contemporary. How do I put that word?
Contemporary?
Yeah, so yeah, making them into contemporary designs, working with designers like Bola, you know. So merging designers like Bola, who are contemporary designers, with artisans, you know, who are back in Ile-Ife and have never been to the UK or never been out of Ife before, and bringing that together.
thank you for all the work that you've been doing. And I do look forward to coming in October. Front row.
Most certainly.
Front row.
Definitely.
We'll look after you.
Yes, and hopefully the Nigeria delegation will be there. Your Royal Majesty, Queen Runke Ademiluyi Ogunwusi of Ile-Ife Kingdom, and Bola Obileye, designer and art director. Thank you so much for your time today, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, Nicholas Pompinha-Monyard, the founder and chairman of the APO Group, joins me from Estoril in Portugal to assess the concept of brand Africa and the continent's diverse and rapidly evolving media landscape. And of course, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be speaking with the founder and chairman of the APO Group, Nicholas Pompinha-Monyard. But until then, here's a breakdown of the biggest business news stories of the week. UK businesses are now required to pay overseas workers coming to the country on a skilled worker visa significantly more as the Conservative government clamps down on cut-price foreign labour and continues to deliver on its commitment to drive down net migration. The general salary threshold for those arriving in the UK on a skilled worker visa has now increased by 48%, from £26,200 to £38,700. This increase will help ensure the UK's immigration system focuses on recruiting high-skilled workers, helping to grow the UK economy while bringing overall migrant numbers down. The trial of 27 people connected with the Panama Papers tax evasion scandal has begun some 8 years after the revelations first emerged. Among the defendants are German-born Jürgen Mossack and Ramon Fonseca, the co-founders of a Panama-based law firm that was at the centre of the document leak in 2016. The scandal had far-reaching repercussions and resulted in leaders of countries leaving office following the revelations. If found guilty, Mossack and Fonseca could face up to 12 years each in prison. Royal Bank of Canada has fired its chief financial officer after an investigation discovered that she was in a secret personal relationship with another employee who received promotions and pay rises as a result. The country's biggest bank said last week that Nadine Arn's employment was terminated alongside the unnamed employee after it discovered evidence that she violated RBC's code of conduct. Arn had worked for the bank for more than 2 decades, becoming its CFO in November. Now to my final topic. Brand Africa is a concept that encompasses the collective perception, reputation and identity of the African continent as a whole. Despite facing numerous challenges, the negative perceptions of the continent are changing, and African storytellers play a crucial part in these changing attitudes. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by the founder and chairman of the APO Group, Nicholas Pompinha-Monyard. Nicholas joins me from Estoril in Portugal. Nicholas Pompinha-Monyard, it's an absolute pleasure having you on Channel's Business Global again. I almost feel like, because you are an expert in media and PR, that we're almost breaking the fourth wall speaking with you today. But it's good because, of course, so many exciting things have been happening across the continent. So it's always great to get an expert opinion. Now, the APO has redefined the media and communications landscape across the continent for several years now, across multiple sectors, particularly sport. In your opinion, how is Brand Africa doing in 2024?
Well, obviously, as we all know, Africa is not a country, and so we will always have discrepancy between countries. But if you look at the latest report from the African Development Bank, as you know, Africa is going to forecast to be the second fastest growing region in the world, and home of 11 of the 20 fastest growing country in the world for 2024. So I mean, I'll say that the continent is doing well, but you will always have those discrepancies between countries. When it comes to the brand Africa in certain sectors, which are referred to as the creative industries these days, I'm referring to music, I'm referring to art, referring to sport. Africa is booming, I would say. In sport, Africa never hosted that many international sports events. You know that Rwanda is going to host the World Cycling Championship the World Cycling Championship. Senegal is going to host the very first Olympic event ever organized on African soil with the Youth Olympic. Egypt just announced, a few months ago, announced they were bidding to host the Olympic Games, 2036, I think. Morocco just won a joint bid with Spain and Portugal to host the FIFA World Cup. So when it comes to sport, and not to forget, for the second time in the row, South Africa is champion of the world of rugby, and so many other good news. Then if you move to music, Afrobeat is exporting all across the world with the Burna Boys, Davidos, etc. And you make me the pleasure to display one of my LinkedIn posts a few weeks ago on your channel. But I have 35 something connection on LinkedIn, and my feed is 95% about Africa. And I guarantee you, when you look at Nicolas Pompil-Mognard's feed on LinkedIn, when you are me and you look at that feed, you can see all the good news coming from all over. It's almost overwhelming. So again, Africa is not a country. 54, you will always have some bad news here and there, but overall, I think the future is bright.
Absolutely. Here, I totally agree with you. And you're right, but besides all of the feed, all of the posts we see on your feed about some of the successful African stories, it's not just about PR. That's not all you do. You also help African journalists tell compelling stories, help shaping their narratives. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what APO Group does in helping us craft our own stories?
Well, it's why I started that company. It's really at the core and the DNA of who we are. We are content provider. We are providing content about Africa, corporate news content, but also content issued by NGOs, international institutions, etc. Press releases, but also images, videos, audio files, in order to capture all the type of media. So to TV, we send video B-roll. To radio, we send audio files. To website, newspapers, we send text, we send pictures. And we are in the business, in the industry of publication, of press release distribution. And so most of the content we are distributing, either corporate news or sport news or etc. Most of that content is actually good news. Usually when an organization is issuing a press release, it's a good news. And so that's why sometimes, as a joke, I refer to us as a chief happiness officer. We are all the content we are issuing across the world about Africa, because we are distributing our content in Africa, but also African content to the world through our partnership with Bloomberg Terminal, Thomson Reuters, Aecon, LexisNexis, Dow Jones Factiva. We are making all that content about Africa available to all the media reporting on Africa across the world. And so we have that very long-standing relationship with the media landscape in Africa. We started providing content 17 years ago. And the characteristic of the content we are providing, we know we are in a world of copyright. We are in a world where if you are a media, you need to respect the copyright, or you need to pay for content. Well, APO content is copyright free because it's public relation content, it's communication content, so it's actually meant to be used. And the service to subscribe to APO is also completely free.
Yes.
So when you think about it these days, specifically when you consider the disinfodemic, what the World Health Organization calls disinfodemic, or the fake news, or the fact that AI is boosting the ability of any people to create fake news, which is still realistic, etc. I'm under the opinion that the public relation industry is becoming a beacon of news, for journalists.
My goodness, we've got a lot to talk about. As I said, you've opened so many cans of worms here, good cans, because we've got to have this discussion. The discussions need to take place so that we can look for solutions, but at least we are getting positive stories. Really insightful speaking with you today. Nicholas Pompigné-Monyard, who of course is the founder and chairman of the APO Group. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.